April 18, 1921. Dorotheum, Vienna. Silver is being called up in the auction hall. Cutlery. Centerpieces. A candelabrum. All of it from Schloss Kleßheim. From the estate of a dead Archduke. From a world that, just 3 years earlier, had still been an empire. Dealers, collectors, intermediaries sit in the rows. On paper, no life remains. Only material, provenance, opening bid. Over the next 10 months, more than 7,000 lots will be called here. Across 54 days. To this day, it is the largest auction in the history of the Dorotheum. And it carries one name, Ludwig Viktor. Ludwig Viktor was no harmless eccentric. He was the youngest brother of Emperor Franz Joseph, close enough to the center to be protected, far enough from the throne to have no future of his own. That is exactly what made him useful. Born in Vienna in 1842, the youngest child. After the death of their only daughter, his parents had hoped for a girl. They got another boy. His mother, Archduchess Sophie, otherwise strict, lets this son have his way. She dresses him up. She has him perform in costumes. Tableaux vivants, living pictures, are the fashion of the time. Ludwig Viktor is good at them. Blonde, animated, entertaining. While Franz Joseph is drilled to be ruler and Maximilian becomes the shadow brother, Ludwig Viktor grows up as the favorite of his mother's ladies-in-waiting. Later, he will turn to photography, the new medium of the age. He has himself photographed, in costumes, in poses. This is the man who grows into the court, a brother of the emperor who would rather be looked at than obeyed. In the House of Habsburg, that was not foreseen. An archduke was supposed to marry, to produce heirs, to wear a uniform, to carry the line. Ludwig Viktor was dynasty in human form, but of the wrong kind. His brother Maximilian once proposed making him heir in Mexico, with the daughter of the Brazilian emperor at his side. Ludwig Viktor refused, categorically. He never married. He didn't want to. That he loved men was no real secret at court. It was tolerated, as long as it didn't become too visible. That is exactly the point. The love itself was not the family's problem. It became delicate because it didn't fit the official form. An archduke who didn't fit the dynastic logic of marriage had to be useful in a different way. Ludwig Viktor was, through charm, through taste, through presence. Barely 20, he was hosting opulent gatherings in his palace on Schwarzenbergplatz. Emperors, aristocrats, artists came. It was a different kind of power than his brothers. No power over armies. Power over rooms. But rooms are not harmless. In salons, rumors form. At receptions, alliances form. And Ludwig Viktor had a tongue that could cut. Princess Nora Fugger, a Viennese lady of the court, describes Ludwig Viktor in her memoirs as feeble, unmanly, affected. His tongue, she writes, was as sharp as a viper's. He meddled in everything, spun intrigues out of it, took pleasure when small scandals followed. A hostile voice, but it fits a story that can be documented. In 1900, his great-nephew, the heir to the throne Franz Ferdinand, marries against the emperor's wishes, a woman of unequal rank, Sophie Chotek. Almost no one from the family attends the wedding, and Ludwig Viktor, it is said, mocked this mismatch the loudest. 4 years later, Franz Ferdinand pays him back. He had leverage. Homosexuality at that time was a criminal offense. In private, it was tolerated. The moment it became public, the state had to act. There had been an incident at the Vienna Central Bad, a men's bathhouse known as a meeting place for homosexual men. Ludwig Viktor reportedly approached a man too closely. There was a slap, a scuffle. For years, no one had cared. In 1904, confidants of Franz Ferdinand made sure the episode was reported to the emperor in the most lurid colors. Now, Franz Joseph could no longer look away. In early 1904, Ludwig Viktor leaves Vienna. He will not return. The punishment was not legal. It was public and visible down to the smallest detail. He is no longer permitted to wear a uniform. The livery of his servants loses its purple and silver. The wheels of his carriage are repainted black instead of gold. A brother of the emperor cannot be removed, but he can be stripped. What does an archduke do when his uniform is taken away? He finds new clothes. Schloss Kleßheim near Salzburg becomes Ludwig Viktor's stage and his cage. Instead of a uniform, he now wears the latest English fashion, with a white hat. In the park, he had a swimming pool with a diving board built, a bathhouse, a tennis court. At his receptions, guests dined off his blue and white Meissen porcelain. He collects more than 600 ceramics, more than 800 books, watercolors by Franz Alt, who painted the castle several times, miniatures, snuff boxes, bijoux, Napoleon's writing set, the travel case of his wife, Marie-Louise. This is not just luxury. It is self-assertion. When a man cannot have a dynastic future through marriage and children, he builds himself a different kind of permanence. Kleßheim becomes a portrait, without a canvas. In Salzburg, they love him. He funds the elementary school in Zietzenheim. After the flood of 1899, he hosts a benefit for the victims. They name a square after him, a bridge, a street. Vienna wanted to be rid of him. Salzburg wanted to keep him. But a castle cannot save a man. It can only keep him. In 1915, Ludwig Viktor is placed under guardianship for dementia. In his final years, he lives in 3 rooms with barred windows, watched over by nuns. On January 18, 1919, he dies there, 76 years old. The monarchy had fallen 2 months earlier. Karl, his great-nephew and the last emperor, was already in exile. Ludwig Viktor had left him everything, together with Karl's younger brother Max, and their mother, Maria Josepha. Shortly after Ludwig Viktor's death, they decided to sell the inheritance. What had once shown power was now property. What had once meant rank was now provenance. The man was dead. The market remained. The contract for liquidation went to a Spanish art dealer, Don Evaristo Sanz Sagaceta de Hurdes. Price, 1,050,000 Swiss francs. He brought the collection to the Dorotheum. The catalog title is cool. Complete Furnishings of Schloss Kleßheim. Estate of Archduke Ludwig Viktor. Furnishings. The word says everything. Not soul. Not memory. Furnishings. The silver alone fetched 22 million crowns. Napoleon's writing set and Marie-Louise's travel case brought 4.4 million. A single Viennese newspaper wrote of an expected total of 250 million crowns. And the name Habsburgs still had a market value, even though the power was gone. The court had needed Ludwig Viktor while he was alive. After his death, no one needed him anymore. But his things could still be sold. By his own family. The collection was scattered across the world into private hands. But something has remained. His Vienna palace on Schwarzenbergplatz still stands. Today it is a rehearsal and performance space for the Burg Theater. His Schloss Kleßheim still stands. It became a state guest house, then a representational venue, later a casino. The elementary school in Siesenheim that he funded still exists. His grave in Siesenheim bears no name, only the initials LV, and a thanks to his emperor. And in the Residence Gallery Salzburg, his portrait hangs. Heinrich von Angeli, 1874. Oil on canvas. Inventory number 657. It survived the auction because it had been given to Salzburg as a gift. The man who once performed in costumes looks down from there, in uniform, before it was taken from him. Perhaps what was auctioned at the Dorotheum was not only what had stood inside Schloss Kleßheim. Perhaps what was sold there was the last form in which Ludwig Viktor was still useful. Not as the emperor's brother, not as a host, but as a line of provenance on a label. Lot number 1. Bid. Hammer.